Hello, my name is Eleanor. 3 minutes. That's how long I was clinically dead. What I experienced in those 3 minutes has haunted me for months, and I finally decided to share it. I encountered someone, who revealed a truth about suffering, about cancer, about the purpose behind pain that doctors never tell you. This isn't a feel-good story. It's something far more unsettling and profound. I spent 38 years as a high school librarian. I loved books, not just the stories inside them, but the quiet, the order, the way students would come in just to find a safe corner to breathe. My husband Frank used to tease me and call the library my second home. Maybe he was right. Frank passed away 5 years ago, a sudden heart attack one quiet Tuesday morning. I found his coffee still warm on the kitchen counter when I came back from walking the dog. Just like that, the man who made me laugh every day for 41 years was gone. I still sometimes reach for his side of the bed in the middle of the night. After Frank died, I tried to stay strong for the kids. I have 2 grown children, Thomas and Karen. I'm proud of them, even if life hasn't been easy. Thomas is 41. He's smart, tender-hearted, and lost. Addiction has had its claws in him since his 20s. He's been in and out of rehab, jail, recovery, relapse, the whole cycle. I used to cry on the bathroom floor, praying God would just let him be okay. When I got my cancer diagnosis, he fell off the wagon again. I think it broke something inside him. His little boy Mason lives with my daughter now. Karen is 38. She's a single mom, a nurse, and probably the strongest person I know. She tries to be everything to everyone, taking care of her patients, her kids, and now me. But I can see it in her eyes. She's exhausted. The other day, I saw her staring at the bills on the counter with her hands shaking. I wanted to help, but I can't even help myself anymore. Karen's son Tyler is 16. He's been skipping school, mouthing off to teachers. He's angry. I know it's not really about me, but I also know my sickness hasn't helped. Sophia, her daughter, is 14 and barely speaks these days. She just curls up on the couch with a blanket, holding my hand like she's afraid I'll disappear. Then there's Mason. He's 8. He doesn't understand much, only that his dad isn't around and that Grandma's sick. Sometimes he asks me if I'll be around for his next birthday. I never know how to answer. It's hard to explain what cancer does to a family. It doesn't just eat at your body. It eats at your time, your energy, your hope. It wraps itself around every conversation, every plan. It turns birthdays into countdowns, hugs into goodbyes you're too scared to say. I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer 8 months ago. The doctors said I had 6 to 12 months, depending on how the treatment goes. But the truth is, the treatment was awful. The chemo made me feel like my body was disappearing from the inside out. Food lost its taste. I couldn't even smell the flowers Tyler brought me from the yard. My skin got thin and papery. My hands shook when I tried to pour coffee. I stopped looking in mirrors. I didn't recognize the woman looking back. She looked tired. She looked scared. I kept doing the chemo, though. Every Thursday morning, I sat in the infusion room at the cancer center. It was full of recliners and quiet TVs. Other patients sat nearby, some chatting, some sleeping. I always brought photos with me on my phone. Pictures of better days, Karen's wedding, Tyler's second-grade play, a picture of Frank in his fishing hat, grinning like a boy with his first catch. I'd sit there, hooked up to the IV, scrolling through those memories. I kept asking myself, is this really helping? Not just the chemo, but all of it. The doctor visits, the pain meds, the hospital bills, the way Karen's back hurt from lifting me, the way Sophia avoided eye contact when I coughed too long, the way Thomas looked like he wanted to disappear every time he visited. One morning, I whispered a prayer I wasn't sure I meant. God, I don't know if I can keep doing this to them. That was the day everything changed. The IV was halfway done. I remember the nurse's voice. Just relax, Mrs. Moore, almost finished. I smiled, but then my throat began to tighten. I couldn't speak. My chest felt like it was closing in. Alarms went off. Someone shouted for epinephrine. My world blurred and everything went dark. And in that moment, I was gone. But what happened next? That's the part that changed everything. And that's the part I need to tell you. The moment I slipped away was nothing like the movies. There were no flashing lights, no thunderclap, just silence. At first I was afraid, truly afraid. I could hear shouting, feel the pressure in my chest, but it was like I was sinking underwater, distant, muffled. I knew something was terribly wrong, but I couldn't move or speak. Then, stillness, and the pain was gone. It's hard to explain what happened next, because it felt like I was both floating and standing all at once. I looked down and saw the infusion room from above, the nurses rushing around my body, someone pressing hard on my chest, calling my name. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I felt light, like I had been carrying a heavy coat for years, and someone finally lifted it off me. There was no weight in my legs, no ache in my bones. My breath came easily, though I wasn't sure I was even breathing. I looked at my hands. They looked younger, steadier, healthy, and the light. It was everywhere. Not like the sun. Warmer. Softer. Like being wrapped in a golden blanket that knew you by name. I turned, and the hospital room melted away. I was no longer in Richmond. No beeping machines, no cold linoleum floors. Just a path, soft and glowing beneath my feet, leading through the most beautiful garden I've ever seen. Flowers bloomed in colors I didn't know existed. Their petals shimmered like they were made of light and music at the same time. There were trees heavy with fruit that looked like it could heal anything. The air smelled like spring and fresh rain and something else. Something like peace. I walked without feeling tired. I didn't limp. I didn't ache. I could move freely like I was finally myself again. The self I'd lost to sickness and sadness. As I moved forward, I heard laughter. Not loud, just gentle and joyful, like children playing in the distance or family gathered on a porch at sunset. Then ahead of me, I saw him. Jesus. He was standing beneath a tree that seemed to touch the sky. His robe shimmered with life. Not fabric, life. His face. Oh, his face. It was full of kindness and knowing. His eyes weren't just looking at me. They were seeing me. Every part, every year, every burden. And still, I didn't want to hide. The moment I saw him, I collapsed to my knees. Not out of fear, out of release. Like my soul had finally found the home it had been aching for all my life. I sobbed. All the things I had buried, the guilt, the fear, the anger at my own body, the regret about Thomas, the feeling that I had let everyone down, it poured out of me like rain. And Jesus, he knelt beside me. He didn't rush me. He didn't tell me to stop crying. He just held me, and I knew I was safe. I was whole. I was loved. He whispered, "My beloved daughter, you have fought bravely, but I want to show you something important." His voice wasn't just sound. It moved through me. It healed me. And as he stood and reached out his hand, I knew this was the beginning of something far greater than anything I had known on earth. I took his hand, and we began to walk. Jesus and I walked together through the garden, and though I felt peace in every step, there was also a quiet stirring in my heart, like something unfinished, something he wanted me to see. We passed streams that sang like lullabies and trees whose branches reached out like open arms. The path glowed under our feet, but I wasn't focused on the beauty anymore. I kept glancing at him, not out of fear, but with a longing I couldn't explain. I didn't want to leave his side, not ever. He smiled at me, as if he knew. Of course he did. We stopped near a tree with golden leaves, and Jesus turned to me. "Eleanor," he said gently, "I want to show you the truth behind your pain." I nodded. my throat tight. With just a motion of his hand, the garden around us began to shimmer. Suddenly, I was watching scenes from my life, not like old film reels, but alive. I was there again. I saw myself at the hospital, my hair thin from chemo, trying to smile at Sophia as she handed me a cup of tea. I saw Karen in the kitchen, quietly wiping tears while the kids argued upstairs. I saw Thomas alone in his car, shaking, crying, then lighting up again. A familiar ritual I'd prayed would end. I felt the weight all over again. I thought it was all my fault, I whispered, that I was the reason everything was falling apart. Jesus turned to me. No, child. Your illness did not create the pain in your family. It revealed what was already there, hidden under busyness, silence, fear. You've blamed yourself for burdens you never caused. Tears rolled down my cheeks, but I felt like a burden. Like maybe they'd be better off if I was gone. His eyes filled with sadness, but not disappointment, compassion. Eleanor, that is the lie suffering often tells, that your presence is the problem. But the truth is, your love has been holding your family together. Even when you felt weak, your presence was a light in their darkness. I cried then, not softly, fully, like my soul had been waiting years to let it out. Jesus stood close and placed his hand on my shoulder. I want to show you something more. And then, the garden shifted again. I saw families around the world, strangers to me, yet suddenly so familiar. A mother in a hospital bed, her daughter sitting beside her holding a book. A father with hollow eyes, hugging his child goodbye before another round of treatment. A nurse crying quietly in the break room, overwhelmed and unseen. A teenager scrolling through his phone, alone in his grief. A boy, just like Mason, asking his grandmother why his daddy doesn't come home anymore. The pain wasn't just mine, it was everywhere. I don't understand, I said softly. Why do we suffer like this? Jesus looked out over the vision with great tenderness. Suffering was never my design, but I give my children the strength to walk through it, and not just walk, but grow. Love deeper, speak clearer, cherish more. Suffering can either harden a heart or soften it to see what truly matters. Then he showed me something else. People who had chosen differently. A man with stage 4 cancer laughing over breakfast with his kids. A family that started praying together after a terminal diagnosis. A support group of strangers holding hands and crying together. No shame, just love. Doctors who stopped rushing and started listening. Teenagers who hugged their parents tight because they now knew what it meant to lose someone. They learned, Jesus said. They learned that every day is sacred. That time is a gift. I thought of Karen, tired but faithful. I thought of Sophia, too afraid to say goodbye. Tyler, angry but lost. Thomas, drowning. Do they know? I asked. Do they know how short it is? How precious? Some do, he said. Some are still blinded. By fear, by pain, by the noise of this world. That's why I need voices like yours. My chest ached, not with sickness, with knowing, with love. But I want to stay, I whispered. I've never felt this peace. I don't want to go back to the chemo, the weakness, the sadness. I know, he said, kneeling beside me again. But your time is not finished. I am giving you more time, not just to fight cancer, but to show others how to live. I looked at him, the love in his face, the eternity in his eyes. What can I possibly give? I asked. Your story, he said. Your truth, your love. You've already begun. And there are children, so many, who are wandering through darkness, aching for a hand to guide them, show them, speak to them, be my voice where they can't hear me yet. Then he showed me a vision, short but powerful. Sophia, years from now, leading a grief support group for teenagers. Tyler standing in a church, sharing a testimony about second chances. Mason writing a letter to his father, forgiving him. I saw myself, older than I thought I would ever be, sitting at a table telling this story to a circle of cancer patients who looked at me not with pity, but with hope. It took my breath away. I turned back to Jesus, tears in my eyes. "Will you be with me?" "Always," he said. "Even when the pain returns, even when the world forgets, I never will." I closed my eyes. My heart ached to stay, but I also knew I couldn't hold on to heaven if I was meant to help others find it. And just as I opened my mouth to speak, the garden began to fade. The first thing I felt was weight, heavy, sharp, real. Pain pulsed through my chest, and the smell of alcohol wipes and plastic tubing hit my nose. I opened my eyes, the brightness of the hospital ceiling blinding. Beeping machines surrounded me. A nurse gasped. Someone called for the doctor. I was alive. For a moment, I didn't understand. I blinked slowly, trying to remember where I had been. Then it hit me. The garden. The light. His face. Jesus. I tried to lift my arm, but it was weak. I could barely speak. But inside, I wasn't the same. I was weeping. Not from fear, not from pain, but because I had touched perfect peace, and now I was back in a broken world. It hurt, not just my body, but my heart. I had been held in the arms of pure love. I had walked in a place without shadows, and now I was back in a room that smelled like medicine and sadness. But I remembered what he said. "You've already begun. There are children wandering in the dark. Be my voice." And I knew. I had come back for a reason. The doctors were shocked. I had been clinically dead for 28 minutes. My heart had stopped, but somehow I returned. And more than that, my cancer markers had improved dramatically. It wasn't gone, but something had changed. My body felt weak, but my spirit felt stronger than it ever had. Karen was the first to rush into the room. Her eyes were swollen, and her face looked like she hadn't slept in days. She held my hand and just kept whispering, "You came back? You came back?" I did, but not as the same woman. In the weeks that followed, I began to see everything through a new lens. Time no longer felt like something to race against. It felt sacred, even the hard moments. Even the tired ones. I started doing things differently. I sat Tyler down, not to lecture him, but to listen. I asked him what he was scared of. We talked about anger, about grief, about how sometimes yelling is easier than crying. We started a weekly movie night, just the two of us. No phones, no distractions. Just popcorn and old comedies and laughter I hadn't heard in months. With Sophia, I began writing letters. One for every milestone I might miss. Her high school graduation, her first heartbreak, her wedding day. I told her stories about when she was little. We cried together. And then we laughed. Real, deep belly laughter that made her shoulders finally relax. I called Thomas every morning, not to remind him to go to meetings or guilt him about the past, just to say, "I love you, I believe in you, I'm proud you're still trying." Slowly, he started showing up again, to family dinners, to life. I made it clear to Karen. She wasn't alone. I arranged for a volunteer from church to help with errands once a week. I had groceries delivered. I even started cooking again, little by little. One night, I made her favorite, chicken and rice casserole, and we ate together without talking about bills or medicine or cancer. Just us, just life. I stopped chasing more time through more treatment. I chose quality over quantity. My doctor respected it. I focused on what made me feel alive, not what kept me alive, and I began sharing my story. At first, it was just to my small group at church, but then someone asked me to speak at a cancer support meeting, then a women's retreat. Then a nearby hospital chaplain invited me to sit with patients going through chemo. I told them the truth. I didn't sugarcoat it. I talked about the fear, the guilt, the pain of feeling like a burden, but I also told them about the garden, about Jesus, about the way he held me and told me my life still mattered, even in weakness, especially in weakness. I told them how suffering can open our eyes, if we let it. I watched faces soften, people cry, people smile, people begin to hope again. Eventually, I started a small support group at the cancer center, not just for patients, but for caregivers too. We call it Sacred Time. We don't just talk about symptoms. We talk about love, about regrets, about what matters most. We laugh, we cry, we pray. We remind each other, every breath is a gift, and that's what I've come to believe more than anything. Every day is a gift. Not because it's painless, but because it's real. Because we get to hug the people we love. We get to say, I'm sorry, or I forgive you, or I love you while we still can. We get to hold hands, share soup, watch the sun come through the window, and know we are alive. I think of Jesus every day, not just in church, but when I hear Sophia's laughter, when Tyler thanks me without being asked, when Thomas sends me a photo of his sober coin, when Mason falls asleep beside me during story time. Those are holy moments too. I know I'm not cured, but I'm not afraid. I don't count the days anymore. I fill them, and I try in every conversation to remind people, you are loved, you are seen, you are here, Suat. And that means your life still has meaning. If you're reading this and you're tired, if you're sick or grieving or lost, I want you to know Jesus hasn't forgotten you, even in your suffering, especially in your suffering. He sees you. He weeps with you. He walks with you. And when your heart is ready, he'll show you, like he showed me, that your story still matters. I used to think I was a burden. Now I know I'm a bridge. From pain to hope, from fear to love. I don't know how many days I have left, but I do know this. I will cherish every single one.